Pretty good. It was a long grinding year, and the guys did a fantastic job. Our players and coaches, and this is the fun time of year. So um, it's a great time of year for the NHL in general. But this should be some great series, and I think this one will definitely be one of them. Two good hockey teams.
You guys, obviously, Landeskog's out for the year. How are you on the injury front, other than that? Is anyone not going to be ready for game one?
Well, we hope that we'll get Kale and Josh Manson back. Obviously, we got to get today and tomorrow through that. I think we believe Cogs and Mulligan will also be ready to go, and Darren Helm continues to grind. So whether he'll be ready for games 1 and 2 at home remains to be determined. But we're hopeful we'll see him as well at some point. So overall, pretty good.
How did the process work with Gabe making the decision he made and why he said it when he did? Were you guys in lockstep with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think Gabe, being the quality person that he is, didn't want it to be something that Coach Bednar had to, be asked about every single day. And his teammates, he's as good of a hockey player as he is. He's the emotional leader of our hockey team and a great person. So I think it was driven by him. He obviously knows he has our full support with what he's going through. But I think we were going to be respectful and handle it however he wanted, but I think he was the key driver of the timing of that.
There's no way to sort of predict that by the trade deadline, right? That was too early in the process.
We certainly wanted to give him every chance. It wasn't like he was, out December and played till January. He missed the whole year, right? And, our goal and his goal was to have him back, and he deserved that. He deserved to have that opportunity, whether it was going to be in mid-March or late March or whatever, and he did everything he absolutely positively could, and obviously he's a massive part. So if he could do it, we that's what we wanted more than anything in the world.
Did you feel like the uncertainty with him sort of affected what you were able to do at the deadline?
Nope. No, I think his situation, we were obviously in the loop. I think there was obviously an unknown component to what he's dealing with, but there was certainly, hope as we were moving into the fall and late winter, and it just became obvious at a certain point that it just wasn't going to make sense for his health and for us as well. Well, I think that was certainly a team effort. It's never done in a vacuum where it's one scout or when you watched him play over the years, you can see the athletic ability and you can see upside. But I think when you factor in, the video that we watched and our analytics information, we felt that was a pretty good swing for us to take to find the next guy. And but then you got to do it on the ice, right? There's a big difference between being part of a tandem and then sort of grabbing the wheel and playing, I think 61 games this year and getting 40 wins is obviously a massive feather in his cap. He's performed incredibly well, and now it's his chance to drive it during a playoff time, which is another experience spoke in his wheel too. That'll be important, but he's been fantastic. But it was a team effort by our all of our hockey ops staff and our goalie department as well.
Are there any particular numbers that you look at with a guy who hasn't been a regular starter before to maybe try and get to a conclusion that he might be an undervalued kind of guy and a starter caliber player, or has this sort of taken you by surprise?
Yes. I'm not going to get into that, but yes, there are lots of things that we sort of look at and have looked at for a while. I think it's a combination though. The players have to be they have to have a talent base. Obviously, I think Darcy in between. I think Philip and ironically Philip and Alex were similar, right? They were part of, Philip was with Braden Holtby and Alex in New York with Shesterk, and obviously Darcy was a different animal, right? He was more of a proven guy and had been a number one for X number of years. So, but I think if you look at Philip and Alex, they were good goaltenders on good, in situations where they were on part of a good tandem, and both wanted, that opportunity to to show that they can be that sort of carry the mail type. And but yes, there are lots of different things that we kind of have in our formula and our sauce that we look at, and obviously UC is a big part of that with watching video and our scouts as well. So it's part of a deep dive, but they got to get it done on the ice, and Philip did when he was here, and Alex obviously has this year as well.
Jared has spoken about how it's a different team this year than last year, and you got to win in a different way. How do you see this team as you start this playoff run compared to last year?
Well, last year's team, I mean, was obviously a very good team. It was very deep. You know, we were deep in all facets, up front, back end, and goaltending. I think obviously we took some cap casualties in the off season, and then had to deal with, I think, you know, a ridiculous amount of injuries. We weren't the only team in the league that had to fight through that, but you know, we were losing some key guys, starting with obviously Gabe, and those guys are really hard to replace. So full marks to our coaches and especially our players for grinding, you know, through a short off season and coming back in back-to-back 50-win seasons, 109 points or whatever. So they get full marks. But I think this group has been resilient. I mean, obviously we have a lot of the same players, but you know, you look at some of the years that, you know, Mac and Mikko and Georgie and Kale and Taser and these guys, they had a big burden, you know, amongst others, and our second half was really strong. So, but it was more of a workman-like approach, consistency in the second half, grinding, finding different ways to win. So very proud of them, and obviously the fun season begins. So tip my cap to our coaches and players.
11 or 12 goals for Dennis Malik in the last third of the season. When you made that trade for Dryden Hunt, I guess, was there a lot of scouting for Dennis? Was it more of like, this is all we can get? Like, how did you handle that?
No, I think it's obviously with any player in the league, we have scouting reports that go back, you know, to his time before he came over the pond, and I think, you know, watching him, his skill stands out, right? He's not the biggest guy, but he's got good hands, he's got good puck IQ, and we've just felt that could translate into a useful player for us, as a guy that would have some elevator ability, that if Coach Bednar wanted to use him in the bottom six or as a righty shot as a piece on the PP2, and give us a little bit of a skill infusion while we're battling through some injuries. I think, you know, Dryden Hunt was a guy that we also liked and took on waivers, obviously, but more of a sort of a sandpapery type, you know, hard-nosed forward. But I just think at that time, we needed a little bit of that, a little bit more skill pop and a little bit more quickness, and that was something that we just felt as a staff made sense at the time. And to Dennis's credit, he's taken advantage of it. He's found a way to score some timely goals for us, and I think that's his value. Where if coach wants to use him, you know, in a second line role, great. If we're healthy and he can slide into a third line role, he's competitive enough to slot in there as well. So he's been a sort of a jack of all trades for us, and has fit in pretty well with our group. Well, you're always learning. I think for me, the seamlessness of doing it here was amazing, right? To get to continue working with Joe and with our coaches that I'm obviously very familiar with, and this team, right? That I've, you know, grown to love and respect over the years since coming to Colorado. But you're always learning, Ryan. I think, you know, for me, being in the, you know, making the calls and taking the calls and building relationships and trust with the other general managers, many of which I've known and grown up with, and in some degree, and some that I've had to get to know. So I think that part has been the continuing to learn on the job part. But you know, having the familiarity of doing it here was certainly no place I'd rather be. So it's been good.
Chris, with the long-term nature of Landeskog's injury, do you expect that the team will be captain either this season or next?
We're not even thinking about that. No, we're obviously we got to, you know, get through the next few weeks here, and Gabe's gonna drive that and dive into that. But no, there's been not 1 second of thought on that.
Going back to your elevation with being the general manager, how much have you leaned on Joe this year? How much has that his relationship and familiarity helped just you kind of get settled in, like you said, maybe some of those GM things?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, you got Joe Sakic, right? Like I've always said there's experiences that Joe has gone through as a player and as an icon in the game that very few people, have. And having worked with him close day to day, the last number of years on the pro side and, sort of the duties that I had, we talked every day. So it's seamless that way and nothing is really, that part hasn't really changed. He's a guy that we know we can lean on in any number of ways. Our players, Bedsy, myself. So we're very, very fortunate to have him around in the role that he is here. So. Yeah, no, you go and Miko and Nathan, obviously they're stars in this league and they have a track record of success. So, you go into the year knowing they're just going to be themselves, right? And they're going to produce. Obviously Georgiev is, like I said, we were very, very bullish on him and believe that he can give us very good goaltending, but he had to go out and do it. There's a difference, I think. Any goaltender would probably tell you that, when you're part of a tandem and you want to be the horse in net and to carry the male guy, I think until you do it, there's always that question and maybe the athlete himself is confident, but when you've got to play 50, 60 games, that's grinding, right? And then you got to get, hopefully an X number in the playoffs as well. So, again, we were really excited to add him, and like Ruby years ago, they got to get it done on the ice, and he did. But I think, with some of our guys that have been here, we kind of know what to expect from them, and I think what's great about Nate and Miko and Kale and Gabe and Taser, they have very high expectations for our group, but they also have they set a very high bar for themselves. So. We're very fortunate to have them, and I think that drives a lot of things in our room.
When you talk about the way this team has played since the middle of January to get to where it is now, how much credit do you give Jared Bednar and the coaching staff just with all the changes and different moves they've had to make to get to this point, right?
Yeah.
That long-term contract extension too, how important is that?
Immense. They're obviously familiar with our group, but Jared, has a great way about him. He's a commanding presence, but I think he has the full respect of our guys. And I'd like to add in, Ray Bennett and Nolan Pratt and UC and Sean Allard and Brett into that mix as well. They're a team too, right? They're a team within the team in that room, and they work a lot of hours and they care about our group immensely, and we're very fortunate to be able to work with them. They're very passionate about the game. They're very passionate about coaching and teaching, and they found a way to, in trying times this year to get our group not only into a playoff spot, but to get first overall and like I said, back-to-back 50-win seasons. That's not easy to do in the best of circumstances. It's the best league in the world with the best players in the world, and they found a way to keep pushing the right buttons and keep pushing these guys. And I think that's the perfect key is the perfect coach for our team. So we're very lucky to have him.
How difficult was that process and decision after winning the cup? Change goaltenders. Everything's turned out great.
Well,
That must have been
yeah, I think with anything in the cap world, you're gonna have to make hard decisions. If we could have brought everybody back, to take another swing, we obviously would have loved to do that. But, the nature of the cap is you're going to have to make those decisions, and it's not going to be the last time we're going to have to make those decisions. But I think with looking at it and assessing it and our group, that was something that, we had to find that next guy at a certain price point, and we honed in on Alex, at the draft. And full marks to Darcy. He came in here and in his 1 year, and he walked away as Stanley Cup champion and deserved every piece of that contract that he got. So it's worked for both.
Hold your breath going of the season, like, hope this one works out.
No, I wouldn't characterize it that way. We were confident that with Alexander and Pav as well. I know Pav has been banged up here, but I think he's got a lot of cachet in our bank. Not only with Joe and myself, but with our coaching staff. He's been here, for whatever years it's been now, and whenever he's been called upon to, whether it's a big start on a back-to-back or if our starter goes down and Pav has to go in like he did in the playoffs last year, he has the full confidence of our group, management, coaches, our fans, I believe. So we're very fortunate in that that we were confident that we would get very good goaltending this year. Obviously, the year Georgiev has had has been incredible, but we had confident that that goaltending would be a strong point for us. And to Georgiev's credit, it's become a real strength of our team.
Cogliano obviously has a huge impact on us. Just what, as general manager, do you see him impact in terms of leadership off ice and presence with the team?
But he walks the walk, right? He leads by example. He's obviously Nathan and Miko and Kale and Gabe and Devon and all those guys are, they're star players. But I think, Cogs is that glue guy that every team needs, 2 or 3 of them. He comes every single day and he brings energy, he brings juice into the room, he leads by example, he does things right on and off the ice. And, this is a guy who was drafted as a first-round pick, who was a top player in his draft class, who's carved out a career as a worker bee, as an energy guy, as a tenacious, defensive forward, because he loves hockey. And I think that's, you spend 3 minutes with him and he loves the game, and every day that he gets to come to the rink and do it, he oozes joy, and you can tell it means something to him, and I think that rubs off on the people around him.
Gabe said that he's still sort of looking for solutions about his knee. He said surgery is still an option as he goes into this offseason. Is there sort of this time around, considering that it has gone on for 3 years and it's been a lingering thing, how do you sort of handle the long-term implications of it? Do you hope to have, I guess, a clear answer about his fate for next season before the season, or
Well, no.
given the cap implications?
Yeah, number one, we want to get Gabe right. I mean, that's the most important thing is his health. He's a massive piece for us, obviously, on the ice. Players like him don't grow on trees. He's a massive piece for our organization in so many ways. So, number one is we want to help him to get this situation right so that he can resume playing. Anything else in terms of like off-season stuff, we'll deal with it as we move on. Hopefully, a playoffs here, and then obviously leading into the draft and free agency, and that will certainly have to be part of our equation, his situation. But goal number one is to assist him in any way possible in terms of getting solutions to help him get everything right. Oh, I think it's hard to make the playoffs. I think it's such a challenging league, and to get one of those tickets gives you the chance to do that. And I think our group has done a fantastic job. I think it's 6 years now in a row they've made the playoffs to give us a chance. And obviously in those first few years we were building and learning, and I think there's challenges to both. I look at what Tampa's done has been incredible, the way they built their team, and Julian and his staff and Coach Cooper and the players. And it's hard. It's a grueling time of year for these guys and what they play through and play with. So to say one is harder than the other, I don't think I can answer that. I think they're both really, really challenging to do, and really obviously last year was last year, and hopefully now we're starting the grueling this week is going to be another test. So one step at a time. But I think they're both really hard to do.
Got time for two more. Go Evan and JJ.
Signed Ben Myers last year, 3 months all straight from the left. Is there a later list of in terms of resources on signing those types of players this year, knowing that you have to give away a lot of picks last year?
Yeah, I think that's the last thing you said. I think it's an area we obviously always pay attention to. And if there was a player that our guys were banging on the door on when we do our our assessments in the year, and if we feel it makes sense and we can get in the mix, we've always wanted to be in the mix. But I think with we've emptied some draft picks and prospects over the last few years. So if we could add to the cupboard in that way, we wanted to do it, and we were able to add Jason Poland and Sam Malinsky and Andre Pavel and Ryan Sandlin, who's all on an AHL deal. But we were excited to add those guys to our group here down the stretch, and look forward to seeing them, what they can do for the Eagles. They're the advantage, I guess, is they're a little bit older. They're 22, 23 years old, as opposed to the kids coming out of the draft. So you're hopefully looking to get maybe a little bit more of a return quicker in terms of games played. And if we can find the next Logan O'Connor type, that would be massive for our group in a lot of different ways. So, but I would say yes, there's been a little bit more of an emphasis on it to try and supplement our cupboards.
Last one, JJ.
After the recent home game rivalry conversation between you and Nathan MacKinnon, where he called you a genius when it comes to statistics, I think it was. I guess what kind of conversations do you have with a guy like Nate, who's proven a lot of skills to kind of help his game grow?
Yeah, no, I'm not a genius. Nate, if he said that, was being kind. But I think Nate and I talk a lot. Obviously he's a very important player for us. And the thing about Nate that I think is really great, and he loves hockey. And you can talk to Nate, about the other teams in the league, prospects, the World Junior draft. He's in tune with it. He may not like me saying that, but he's a hockey nerd in a lot of different ways. He loves the game. So we talk about a lot of things, and he's obviously committed to our group. He signed a long-term extension to be with the Avs for a long time. So if there's things, our conversations, we talk hockey a lot. So, but I don't know about that first part. So.